The smell hit Yara Osai before she even opened the dig box. It was ancient and wrong, not rot, not must, not the mineral cold of compressed earth. It was something older than any of those things, something that made the small hairs on her forearms prickle up like a compass needle hunting for north. She had smelled 10,000 dig sites in 17 years of field work. She had never smelled anything like this. Osai, her assistant, Damie, crouched on the other side of the trench with a brush in one hand and a look on his face she recognized. The look that meant he was trying to decide whether to say what he was actually thinking. The carbon dating is wrong. Say wrong numbers, Yara said without looking up. 41,000 years. She looked up. Before we get excited, Damie said, the equipment may need recalibration. Run it again. I ran it 6 times. The tablet in his hand showed the same number 6 different ways. 41,000 years. The Ubaid period was 6,000 years old. The Göbekli Tepe complex, the oldest known constructed site on Earth, was 12,000. What they had found beneath the salt flats of southeastern Turkey, at a depth that should have yielded nothing more interesting than compacted sediment, was 41,000 years old, and it was made of something that wasn't stone. Yara climbed down into the trench. The object was roughly 3 meters long and half a meter wide, curved slightly like a rib. Its surface had the dull ochre color of old bone, but the texture of nothing biological she could name smooth where the brush had cleared it, but scored along one edge with marks that repeated. Not random fracture lines. Not erosion. Something had made these marks deliberately, at regular intervals, with a tool or a claw or a hand, and whoever or whatever had made them had understood the concept of sequence. She pressed 2 fingers against the surface. The warmth surprised her. Bone cold was the name they gave to the specific temperature of buried artifacts in deep soil. It came up the fingers like a handshake from the past. This was the opposite. This was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was warmth, like something inside it still breathed. She pulled her hand back. I want a full containment tent, she said. No photos leave this site. Nobody talks to press, nobody talks to their families, nobody talks to anybody until I say so. Damie looked at her for a long moment. You know what this looks like, he said. I know what the marks look like, she said. Run the dating again. The marks were a language. It took Yara 11 days to be certain, and another 3 to begin to understand why certainty felt less like discovery and more like standing at the edge of something that went down farther than she could see. She worked at night. She told the team she needed silence for concentration. Mostly, she needed to be alone with what the pattern was starting to say. They were not the first. That was the simple version of it. The longer version, the one that kept her awake in her cot with the generator humming outside and the desert pressing in on all sides, was this. Whatever had made those marks had been here before any civilization that humanity called its own. Before Sumer. Before the cave painters at Lascaux. Before the first deliberate fire. Something had stood here, on this particular patch of ground, and carved a sequence of symbols into a material 41,000 years old, and the sequence was not a story or a prayer or a map. It was a list of instructions. She was on the 14th character of the second column when she felt the change in the air. Not a sound, not a movement, just the quality of the night shifting, the way a room shifts when a door opens somewhere in a distant part of a house. She turned. He was standing at the entrance to the tent. He was tall, and his stillness was the kind that was not peace but restraint, the stillness of something that had learned to hold itself very carefully inside a shape it had chosen. His face was a man's face. The eyes were wrong. Not the irises, not the color. The thing behind them. The depth, or the lack of depth, or the quality that made Yara think, in the fast-moving animal part of her mind that still ran older software than language. There is nothing there that flinches. Dr. Osai, he said. His voice was precise, unaccented, like a word spoken in a recording studio, each phoneme exactly where it was supposed to be. "You have been remarkably efficient," he said. "We expected weeks more before you arrived at the second column." She did not run. Later she would wonder about that. Her body had been afraid, she could feel it, the elevated heart rate, the narrowed vision, the limbs ready to move. But she had not run. Something older than fear, or perhaps something that had grown up in the same soil as fear and put down deeper roots, made her stay still. "Who are you?" she said. Not a question, a stall. He moved into the tent. The fluorescent worklight did something strange to him, casting no shadow where one should have been, then casting one that was slightly wrong, slightly longer than his body warranted. He looked at the artifact the way you look at a book you wrote yourself, recognizing the words before you read them. "You would call us the Anunnaki," he said. "The Draconians, Nephilim, the Shining Ones. The names change, the concept persists." He paused. "We prefer no name at all, but that seems to cause humans distress." "You made this," Yara said. "We made everything," he said. "This is simply a record of it." She looked at the column of marks, the instructions, at 41,000 years of deliberate, patient inscription, at the implications of the word everything. "The genetic work," she said. "The cognitive modifications, the language centers, the capacity for abstraction that allowed you to look at the night sky and ask why it was there." He said it without pride and without guilt, the way you might describe changing the oil in a machine. "You were a promising substrate. You required considerable refinement." "We required," she said, past tense. Something moved in his face, not expression exactly, more the memory of one. "Your development accelerated beyond our models," he said. "Several thousand years ago, then again in your last century, the rate of change has become," he paused, "irregular." "Unpredictable," Yara said. "Yes. That bothers you." He looked at her the way she sometimes looked at carbon dating results that came back wrong. Not anger, the particular displeasure of an instrument that has returned data outside expected parameters. "We have managed your development for 41 millennia," he said. "Through every civilization, every collapse, every renewal. We seeded your mathematics, your agriculture, your written word. We shaped your religions in our image. We have been patient." "You've been watching," Yara said. "There's a difference." The slight wrongness around him seemed to thicken, the shadows rearranging themselves by some logic she couldn't name. She became aware that there were others outside the tent. She could feel them the same way she'd felt him, not through any sense she could articulate, just the pressure of a presence held very still. "We are here because the artifact should not have been found yet," he said. "You are a century ahead of where you should be. It creates complications. For your plan. For the management of your development." She looked at the marks she had spent 11 nights translating. The instructions. A list of parameters for the cultivation of a species. She thought about the word substrate. She thought about what it meant that they had shaped humanity's religions in their own image, and what that said about the image. "So what happens now?" she said. "You take the artifact, make us forget." He was quiet for a moment that felt calculated. "That has historically been effective," he said. Yara nodded slowly. She reached into the breast pocket of her field vest and removed the small USB drive she had been carrying for the last 6 days. She set it on the edge of the dig box. "That's everything," she said. "Full translation notes, photographs, dimensional scans, the spectral analysis of the material composition, and a paper I finished 3 days ago which I've already submitted to 6 journals under 6 different co-author names from 6 different institutions, including 2 in countries whose communications your organization doesn't monitor." She let that sit. "I'm guessing, based on what you just told me, that you don't actually want to go loud. 41,000 years of patience suggests you prefer quiet solutions." He looked at the drive. She had seen that look before. She had given it herself in the field when a trench opened up and yielded something the earth had hidden for longer than anyone expected. the look of encountering a variable that wasn't in the model. "You understand," he said slowly, "that you don't know what you found." "I know exactly what I've found," Yara said. "I've found the maintenance record for a livestock operation, 41 millennia of it." She picked up the USB drive and put it back in her pocket. "And I've found out that the livestock learned to read." He was still. The tent was still. Outside, the desert was still in the way deserts are still, not empty but patient, full of the time it takes for stone to become dust and dust to become stone again. "What do you want?" he said. "Not a question, a threshold." "Conversation," Yara said. "Actual conversation. What you know about the human brain that we don't. What you know about the civilizations you watched collapse. What's in columns 3 through 7, because I've only gotten through 2 and I suspect the rest of it would change every field of human knowledge simultaneously." She paused. "You made us curious. That was your modification, you said. The capacity for abstraction. The ability to look at the night sky and ask why." She met the not quite human eyes directly. "What did you think was going to happen?" The shadow did its wrong thing again. The presence outside the tent shifted. He looked at her for a long time, looking with whatever it was behind his eyes that was not depth and not flinching but was perhaps, she thought, something she did not have the vocabulary for yet. She thought about 41,000 years. She thought about the patience required to manage a species through every collapse and every renewal, to seed mathematics and agriculture and the written word, to be present at the beginning of every civilization humanity had ever called its own. She thought about what it must be like to do all of that, and then find that the variable had learned to read the documentation. "Sit down, Dr. Osai," he said. His voice had changed, not warmly, not with any of the human registers of warmth, but it had changed. Some of the precision had gone out of it. Something older and less polished had come into its place. She sat down. He sat across from her on the equipment case that held the spectral scanner. "Column 3, he said, "concerns the modification of your limbic system. It will require context." "I have paper," Yara said. She pulled her notebook from her vest pocket. The same notebook she had used for 11 nights of translation work, every page dense with her own handwriting, the margins full of questions she had not yet found anyone to ask. She opened it to a blank page. Outside, the desert held its breath the way it had held it for 41,000 years. The generator hummed. The fluorescent light buzzed. Yara Osai, daughter of a schoolteacher and a civil engineer, Ph.D. in archaeolinguistics from the University of Ghana, 17 years of fieldwork across 3 continents, held her pen above the page. She was aware, in the part of her that was still running the older software, that she was afraid. That the thing sitting across from her was not human, and had never been human, and had managed her species like a crop rotation for longer than her species had known how to write. That the others outside the tent could do things she didn't have frameworks for. She was also aware of what she had in her pocket. The 6 journals, the 6 co-authors, the 2 countries with uncovered communications, every page of 11 nights of work already beyond this tent, already moving through the world. The pen touched the paper. "Tell me about the limbic system," she said. He told her. She wrote it down. The stars outside were very old, older than anything he had built or anything she had found, older than the instructions on the artifact and the species they described, and they had seen stranger reversals than this. The hand of the maker, held still across a notebook page by the creature it made, while outside the desert turned slowly toward dawn, and the world that was about to change waited on a USB drive in the breast pocket of a